Hey, hi, hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Shannon. How you doing? Nice to meet you. I hope you're doing so very well. Today I'm bringing you my 2022 reading stats. A little late, but it's still here, and that's the most important thing. So if you're interested in some stats and graphics on my reading in 2022, stick around. In 2022, I read 57 books, 59 if we are counting DNFs. This totals to 19,631 pages, 57.5 hours listened. This broken down into format is 71.8% physical, 15.8% as Kindle, ebook, and 10.2% as audio. This will be on screen broken down into what books I read in what format. This is so interesting to me because I definitely have a system of things. I'm very picky with audiobooks, so I tend to listen to them. Like, that's the least format that I probably go for most often. And when I'm reading on my Kindle, I tend to be reading Kindle Unlimited books, romances, or things that are just genuinely cheaper. Or if I am traveling a lot, then that's when my e-reader comes. But the majority of my reading is physical. This is the thing for me. I just enjoy reading books physically more than I enjoy any other format. Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy reading on my Kindle now and again and listening to a good audiobook, but just in general, like, I love picking up a physical book, and there's nothing like relaxing with a physical book and just letting the world dissolve into a better one. So, well, depending what you're reading. But this is so interesting to me, seeing these different book covers on how I consume them. So it does have quite a few graphics. So the next graphic is going to be what books I read in what month, and it will be structured best to worst for each month. So if you're interested, then you should pause and take a look, because there will be a slideshow at this precise moment telling you what I read, what month I read it, and what was the best of that month, and all the way down to the worst of that month. It's very interesting to see how inconsistent my reading is, because some months I have like 7 books, some month I have 2. Like, it's so wild to see how inconsistent I am at reading. And I very much feel that if I tracked my reading through my moods, that when I'm reading a lot of books, my mood is probably very stable. But when I'm reading less, it's either really excitable, erratic, happy, or it's very low, because I tend to not read a lot when I'm in either of that mood. So I tend to read my most when my mood is just very stable, which is as often as it decides to be, I guess. Down into ratings. This is broken down into all the ratings I gave. I gave no 1 stars, I believe. Did I give 1 star? I can't remember. Slide will be it showing in ratings, and I put 1 and 1.5 together as a rating because for me they're interchangeable. Technically 2 could be shoved in there as well. Like, my ratings probably go from like a 2 to a 5, because a 1 to 2 star book is just bad in my opinion. So I have all of my ratings from 1 to 1.5 all the way to 5 star. Again, this is very interesting to see because I didn't have the best reading year. My 5 stars were fairly poor, unfortunately. I only had 5 stars this year. I had 5 4.5 stars. The bulk of my reading was 4 stars and 3 stars, which is not the worst. Like, it's an average reading year. This is the lowest amount of 5 stars I've ever had since I got back into reading, which is just very interesting. I don't know why, if it was because I was picking up books that just weren't for me, if it was because I was picking up books outside my comfort zone. I don't know why my rating was so low this year, but this year felt very mediocre in the reading sense, which is unfortunate, but it's just the way it goes. Hopefully 2023 will bring better ratings. The next slide is my books broken down into genres. So the most of any genre I read this year was romance at 37.3%. Then we have mystery thriller. I combine these two because they're interchangeable to me most of the time. This is 35.6%. Horror was 10.2, which is the highest this has ever been for me, and I have been branching out trying to read more horror and read more things that aren't necessarily what I would gravitate towards. And fantasy was at the lowest it's probably ever been on my list at 6.8%. Something that's never been on my list is sci-fi, which is at a 1.7%. And the outlier is mythology at 1.7%. Again, not something I read huge amounts of, but it's very interesting because the science fiction and the mythology that I read this year is one book each genre, and they both end up with 5 stars. So it does say to me that reading things I don't normally read does pay off. It just means that I'll have a more scattered kind of rating as I read different things. I don't know. I hope this makes sense. I've made a miscellaneous section because whether it be because it's a hybrid genre or that I think the genre is marketed wrong and that it doesn't fit into my version of that genre, then that's why there's a miscellaneous kind of category, because I didn't want to put them into just one genre if they're hybrid, and I didn't also want to put something in a genre I don't believe it belonged to. So yeah, that's there as well. For queer rep, I read 61.4% as absent, which I would like to change in the future. I always want to diversify my reading, make sure that I'm reading things that are important to me and having new experiences in my reading. So even though I'm happy that almost 50% of my reading had some kind of queerness or queer rep to it, I would like more in the future, because 17.5% was present and not a main character, and 21.1% was a main character. I think if I combined present and main character to main character percentage wise, I'd be a lot happier with this number. But yeah, I need to read more queer books because I love them and I would like to branch out and read more of them. This year I just didn't see a lot in my list that would take up main character energy, unfortunately, but I'm happy that there is still a good percentage of my reading that has queer rep. Then we have ages. I read a lot of adult this year. I think this is the most adult I've read in any given year. This is 62.1% was adult, 25.9% was young adult, 10.3% was new adult, and 1.7% was middle grade. I don't read a lot of middle grade. It's not something I gravitate towards. I do gravitate towards young adult to new adult to adult. But this year, I don't know, I feel like my reading's transitioning. I read a lot of young adult when I got back into reading, but I seem to gravitate more towards adult or new adult at the moment, and that's why this graphic is so accurate, because it does feel like I haven't read a much young adult, which I would like to change in 2023. I think I want to kind of go back and find the things that I loved in fantasy in young adult in the first place. I don't know if contemporary young adult is really for me unless it's a story that really takes my interest. I definitely gravitate more towards adult, but I do still have an interest in young adult fantasy. But to be fair, I think that it doesn't really matter for me about ages. Like, this graphic doesn't mean much to me because I will read, if a book is interesting to me, I will read it, no matter what age it's targeted towards. That is all I have for you today. I hope you found this interesting. Let me know down below your best reading month and your worst reading month of 2022. And I hope you have a great day, great week, great weekend, whenever you're watching this. Remember to stay safe, happy and healthy, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Maybe I've been going nowhere lately. It's time to start all over and go.